Hi, this is Reese Martin with Cloudless Lens Photography. As I've done the last few years, I'm here to take you through a selection of the pictures I've taken over the last year and kind of talk about what I've seen and how the last year has gone. And, as has been the case, I get to the end of the year and I don't really look back and think, oh man, I've done so much. But once I get the pictures together and actually go through exactly what I've done, it's amazing all the opportunities that I've had in 2017 and the places I've been able to travel to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look and see what I've got for you. Alright, now believe it or not, I've lived in Tulsa my whole life, but this was the first year that I went to the Gilcrease Museum. Samantha took me there around Valentine's Day to tour their amazing collection of art. As such, I'd never been up there to take any pictures. So this is a picture I took in January of 2017 at the front of the Gilcrease. I'm sure a ton of people have taken this exact same picture, but it meant a lot to me because it was my first visit. It was just as the sun was setting, and so you have that really nice glow of the light inside while everything outside of the museum is pretty cold because the light's almost gone. Alright, this next one, this is the Sophian Plaza in Tulsa on the banks of the Arkansas River. This is a building I haven't paid much attention to since really getting to know the city and taking pictures of downtown and the surrounding area. This is a condo today, but it was originally built as kind of an apartment building for the folks coming in with all the oil money while downtown was under construction. It was built in 1926, the same year that Route 66 was established. When I took this picture early in 2017, I was just simply admiring the brick building and paying attention to it for the first time. I didn't understand how much time I'd actually be spending inside the Sophian Plaza, but I'll get to that later. It's a beautiful building, and I'm glad that I'm finally paying attention to it. We had a little bit of an ice storm in January last year, and the roads were fine, but the coating of ice really was beautiful on any kind of small thing like the tree branches and bridge structures and stuff like that. So I hopped in the car and went north of Tulsa to a few different places, and this was my favorite. This is an abandoned bridge over Bird Creek near Sperry. The bridge itself didn't have a lot of ice on it, but boy, these branches here at the end of the bridge just really show you how cold it was and what the everything around there looked like. It was very much a winter wonderland kind of landscape, and of course I'm a sucker for old bridge pictures anyway, and this is a unique one in my collection. This is the march at the Oklahoma City Capitol. I think this was just before inauguration or just after inauguration. Basically, just a bunch of women throughout Oklahoma coming together, making sure that both the state and federal governments understood that there was a loud voice here. And it was very surprising. It's the first large-scale political event I've been to like this. And with Oklahoma being such a conservative state, I was surprised we had such a turnout. I went with Samantha and a couple of friends of mine, and it was a very interesting experience on several fronts. But since I had my camera, I thought it was important to capture the event. I love Old Neon and I love Route 66. This is the year that I finally got pictures of the Rock Cafe neon on, usually when I'm down in Stroud, Oklahoma, which is where this is. It's the middle of the day and you don't, of course the neon's not on. This has been a big year for me in the Route 66 community. This was taken the evening I was coming back from our first quarter meeting with the Oklahoma Route 66 Association, where I was accepted as the Tulsa County representative. Over 2017, I've become more involved with the Route 66 community, both on a state level and a city level, having also been accepted as a member of the Tulsa Route 66 Commission. So, 2017 was the year I moved from just a casual observer and photographer to somebody that has a voice at the table at decisions that are made on a statewide level, which is pretty exciting. This is artist Patrick Sullivan putting the finishing touches on the limestone monuments in Tulsa. As part of the Tulsa Vision Project, 3 limestone monuments were chiseled and placed next to Route 66 in Tulsa on Southwest Boulevard, which is the west part of town. And as you can see in the picture here, he's painting a little bit. I was lucky to get to spend some time with Patrick, while he was chiseling the stone monuments. I followed them as they took them out to the park from the waterworks studio where they were being constructed, and got to attend the kind of reveal ceremony once the bits of paint were added and everything. So this picture is kind of in the middle of all that, and represents that time I got to spend not only with Patrick, but to see a piece of Route 66 get installed fresh. I got sent up to Columbia, Missouri in February on a business trip, and as usual I mapped out my route beforehand so that I could take some back road highways to get there. The Buffalo Motel is in Buffalo, Missouri. The hotel's closed, but as soon as I saw this neon sitting off the side of the road, I hit the brakes and pulled over so I could go get some pictures of it. It was a cold, blustery day, very overcast, but the repainted orange on the sign just really pops, and most of the neon is intact, so I don't know if it turns on anymore. I kind of doubt it, but it's a really nice look, and with bison being such a big deal in Oklahoma, and it's nice to see this in a good photographic condition. On that same trip, any free afternoon I had, I kind of got in the car and went around to take a look at some of the small towns around Columbia. This is in Sedalia. This has a lot of things I like. It's a great little downtown near the courthouse. You've got this great building across the street here, which reminds me of Guthrie here in Oklahoma. You have neon on this old hotel, both kind of a hanging sign and over the entryway. It's just great, and a total surprise. I knew the building was here because I'd seen a picture of it, which is why I went to Sedalia in the first place. But the neon was a complete surprise, and all of the downtown was just really nice. I got a ton of pictures there, but this really kind of captures that entire day for me of exploration. Poplar Bluff, Missouri. This old cinema had been on my radar for quite some time, but it's about 6 hours from Tulsa, and I just hadn't made the time to drive out there. A little too far for a day trip to get there and back in one day. But on my way back through Missouri back home from that Columbia trip, I went out of my way to go take a look at it, and boy am I glad I did. It's very interesting to sit here and look at this, where, I can only imagine what this looked like when it was brand new and showing first run films. And today it's kind of run down. It's more of a community theater. But even the materials you can see on the back here, the metal is not super high quality. Of course, the bit in the middle with Rogers on it is falling apart. So it's got this really interesting bridge between something that was ornate and today is just not really doing that well. But Poplar Bluff had a lot of neat little stuff going on in it. Some historic buildings and some neon. But the cinema was by far my favorite thing. In addition to getting more involved with the Route 66 community from an official side, this was also the year that I had my first, what I would consider a professional art showing at the Circle Cinema in Tulsa. In the month of March, I had a little over a dozen hand-picked pictures that I edited and printed specifically for the showing there, and my pictures hung in the lobby of Tulsa's only independent movie theater for a month. It was a really great honor to be there, to show my work, and to give a presentation that I had designed originally to give at the Tulsa Public Library, which I did in January. But it's a presentation, essentially a photo slideshow of my trips down Route 66 that I gave 3 times this year, which was just really great to be able to share my experience and passion with others, answer questions and all that. So this was a nice kind of marriage of the two, showing some higher quality prints and selling a couple of them, which I'm very thankful for, and giving a presentation in one of the theaters to kind of show people what Route 66 is all about. It was super cool. I have a ton of pictures of the Meadow Gold sign. It's one of my favorite things to photograph. But I'm always looking for the next picture. What can I take a picture of with the sign to make it something unique or help it stand out? So when we have a storm come through, I'll often head that direction to see if I can get some good pictures of the clouds with the neon, especially when the neon is fully lit, like you can see here. And I just got lucky with this, just a rainbow showing up after the storm was leaving. All the neon is on. It's just great, and especially now that the clocks are installed, it just looks really wonderful, and I'm very happy with this picture. This is in Ralston. A friend of mine and I took a little road trip through Osage County to take pictures of some bridges and some other places up there. And in Ralston, there's an old opera house that is slowly being restored. The bottom level, most recently, was like antique shops and stuff like that, and it's just full of all kinds of junk. The second floor was an opera house, which was restored, gosh, maybe partially restored about 20 years ago, and then fell back into disrepair. But my friend Nick and I got there in a good time. The door was open. We walked over, and we got to see the second floor. I'm focused on the chairs here because all the chairs have been reinstalled in the old theater, and the curtain is down, which has all kinds of advertising from cities around the area. It has a long way to go, and the Forgotten Oklahoma group donated some money to it this year to kind of help keep the restoration going. But it was a real treat to be able to get to walk around the inside and talk to the gentleman that's doing most of the work, and just kind of see a piece of Oklahoma's past as it's being slowly put back together. The Blue Dome is another building that I take pictures of quite often, and I'm always looking for some kind of unique way to take a picture of it. I had a friend coming through, a couple of friends coming through Tulsa on Route 66 from out west all the way up to Chicago in this great old pickup truck. And so what a great opportunity to meet up with them, have coffee, and then show them a little bit of Tulsa as they make their way through. And so right there at the corner of 2nd and Elgin, I asked them to pull over, got some pictures of them in their truck. Then I even got a little ride through downtown, which was just really wonderful. All of my Route 66 trips have either been in the Mustang or in Samantha's car, so anytime I get to ride around in an actual classic vehicle, I'm very, very pleased and giddy. But it made for a great picture, that's for sure. My friend Rose works for Delta Airlines, and she flew into Tulsa this year. Had a little bit of time, so I gave her a little bit of a tour, showed her the Golden Driller and the Blue Whale, and then took her up to Pawhuska to see the tall grass prairie so she could see some bison in their natural environment. It was a great trip. I hadn't been back to the tall grass prairie in quite a while, and it'd been even longer since I'd been there in the spring, summer, where the temperatures were nice, the grass was green, and as you can see in the distance here, they had some burn-off going north of the prairie. So you have all that smoke as they're kind of preparing for summer, and it made for a really interesting picture. The Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Whenever there's a storm, like I mentioned with the Meadow Gold sign, I'm trying to think of, okay, where can I go to take some pictures? The area might be a little bit different now than it would be normally. And typically I'll just drive around a little bit. I got lucky here and drove out by the Cain's on Main Street here in town. Saw a giant puddle in the road, so I pulled over and got this really nice reflection shot. Actually took this one with my phone because I had been at the office when the storm had come through. And it just goes to show you that the best camera that you have is the one that you have on you, even if it's just your phone. If you're in the right place at the right time, you can still capture a really good picture. Now this is a picture I'd had in my mind for a long time and just hadn't had the opportunity to take it. This year they closed an on-ramp in downtown Tulsa near my office, and so I was able to actually take my camera and walk up the on-ramp that was closed to traffic to get this shot. This is the Ambassador Hotel here in the foreground, and then the background is the International Plaza. And they're just two very different architectural styles, and especially with the height difference, it just makes for a really dynamic picture that I really like. You have the brick, you have the metal, you have the glass, and so almost like the hotel in front is about to get swallowed by the building in the back. Sometimes I have an idea for a picture, I take it, and it just doesn't look like it does in my head. Other times it looks perfect, and this is one that looked perfect. This is the old Threet filling station outside of Luther, Oklahoma on Route 66. It was a real moody day when I was down there. Pulled off to the side of the road, took a couple of pictures, and then headed to Arcadia for the Neon Fest. Later in 2017, I'd actually meet family members of the Threet family that owned this filling station back in the day, and are planning to restore it in the future. This is on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's known as a place that African Americans could stop, get service, get food, back in the days of segregation where they couldn't stop everywhere. And so this is culturally significant for a number of reasons, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for this little old service station on Route 66. Neon sunset in Arcadia. This is at my friend Jim's house. He has a couple of neon signs in his backyard that have been restored, including this one for a drugstore. It was my first time getting to stop and visit at Jim's place in the evening. It was one of the only Route 66 gatherings I was able to attend this year, and so it was really nice to see my friends, catch up, and just visit with everybody. We had a nice sunset to go with the day with the neon blazing, so it was just really nice to be down there to talk to everybody and to get some pictures. Jim and Shelley are great people. Did a lot of bridge hunting this year, more than I thought when I just thought back on it. This is the Council Creek Bridge west of Tulsa. What's interesting about this bridge is it used to be on Old Highway 51, and it was relocated just off the highway. And to move it, they actually had to cut it in half lengthwise. You can look on the sides of the bridge and see the weld marks, those little dark brown areas, and just that cuts right down the middle of the left and the right side of the truss in order to get it moved. I've never seen anything quite like it before. And this is actually a K-truss also. That's K-truss is the design where the metal on the sides look like a letter K. If you look on the left-hand side, that first vertical, you can see that the metal comes in and forms the letter K. Does it on both sides. Oklahoma has a lot of these truss bridges because the Oklahoma Department of Transportation had selected this design as their main design for quite a number of years. Every year, more and more of them are destroyed, taken down, what have you. And so I'm always excited when I'm able to take pictures of one I haven't seen before. And this was saved mostly due to the work of Bill Deering, who was, I don't have my information in front of me, was he the county commissioner? He was basically one of the men involved in getting this bridge saved. He saved a lot of historic bridges in his time, and so it's nice to see that they have a bridge in his honor out, even though it's out in the country in Oklahoma. Hopefully people like myself will say, oh, Bill Deering, who is that, and then go do some research. This is a pure luck shot. This is out in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. There's a one-lane automobile bridge that had been closed. They built a new bridge. Thankfully, they left the old bridge intact, so I was able to go out there and walk the bridge and take pictures. And there's a railroad bridge right next to it. So now there's three bridges right next to each other. Railroad bridge that's still in use, an old auto bridge, which is now a pedestrian crossing, and then a regular old car bridge. And so I'm out there taking pictures. I'm actually walking back to the car, and the ground starts rumbling. Well, I'm out in the middle of this other bridge, and so I just feel it start moving. What in the world is going on? I figured it might be an earthquake. And then, no train horn or anything, but I hear that sound of the train on the track, and so I look over my left shoulder, and it emerges from the trees and onto the bridge. And so I just turn around and take a couple of pictures as it crosses, and just felt very lucky to be there at the right moment when that train came across. It really made for a really nice picture. In May this year, I once again took pictures for the Patriot Fest in West Tulsa. They have a great car show and just a great little family event around Memorial Day. This is the winner of the car show, a beautiful red Ford Mustang. And so, as is now tradition, I had him pull over next to the locomotive, take some pictures, and this was my favorite shot of the day, getting that nice bright red car next to that bright blue locomotive. They're doing some work out at the Route 66 Village here, and so by the time the next Patriot Fest rolls around, they'll have a little replica gas station, and they're working on funding to get a cover for the train so that the paint doesn't fade, and every year they just keep adding more out there, and I'm all for it. This is a picture of my friend Michael Wallace. This has probably been the biggest stroke of luck this year, is getting to spend some time on the road with Michael. Michael released his 19th book this year, and I had gone to his book release here in Tulsa, listened to him speak, and I'd met Michael a few times, met his wife a few times, but whenever I'd gone to that, he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I've got a proposition for you. Give me a call in the next couple of days." And so I did, and after a short discussion, I agreed to join him on the road for 10 days to promote his new book about the Donner Party, and spent 10 days in a car with him going through Missouri and parts of Illinois. And so if you know Michael, he's a master storyteller, and he's got all kinds of stories, both on Route 66 and in the American West and all over the place. And he was raised in St. Louis, which we spent a whole weekend there. So for more than a week, I got to go to these places that held a lot of memories for him, and got to share in those stories. And he was just as interested in things that I was interested in seeing. And this picture was taken in Parkville, Missouri, which is just north of Kansas City. There's a truss bridge there that I wanted to take some pictures of, and he was all for the detour to go up there and do that. So this is on the banks of the Missouri River there in Parkville, and he walked out with me and admired the bridge and told me stories about some of his research and trips in the area. And this was just a quiet moment of him contemplating the river. And so I just felt so fortunate to be involved with that trip, and to strengthen that friendship I have with him. And so Michael lives in the Sophian Plaza, and earlier I mentioned that I got to spend more time in that building this year than I had anticipated when I had taken those early pictures. And it's just been really great to be involved, and Michael's helped me with some of my research and my Route 66 growth this year, and I'm happy to help him whenever I can. So this is, of those 10 days and thousands of pictures I took, this is my favorite. Now, on that same trip, we happened to be in St. Louis when the Illinois Association was taking their couple-day cruise through the state, which culminated in a trip across the Chain of Rocks Bridge, which is normally closed to automobile traffic. But the association had arranged where the bridge would be open so that these folks that were taking their classic cars down Route 66 would get to cross the Mississippi River in St. Louis across this historic crossing. And so I couldn't miss the opportunity, even though I was just in a pretty basic rental car, to drive across myself. And then I set up on the other side of the bridge and got some pictures as these beautiful automobiles crossed on their own. It was just a really great opportunity, and again, something I never thought I would be able to do myself. But just being at the right place at the right time, and having the equipment to capture this moment is really, really nice. Now this was I met a man in Springfield a couple of years ago at the Birthplace Festival. His name's Dr. T. Lindsay Baker, and we had a nice conversation about a book he was writing about a book on Route 66 diners, and another book he was writing about postcard imagery and where that came from and all that. It was just a really great conversation. But I learned in the middle of this year that in order to prepare for his next book, he was taking an old model, an old Ford, which you can see here, and driving Route 66. He lives in Texas, so what he did was he drove up from Texas to about Oklahoma City, and then drove all the way up to Chicago in this car, turned around, and then drove all the way out to California, turned around, and then went back to Texas. It was him and a friend of his. And so, of course, when they're getting ready to come through Tulsa, I thought, what a great opportunity to say hello and to take pictures of this beautiful 1930 Model A. And so I met up with them. They didn't know I was coming, and had lunch with them, and got some pictures. This is at the Tulsa Fairgrounds. And it was just great, not only to see my friend Dr. Baker again, but to see this car and talk to him about his journey. And he was trying to make it as authentic as possible to help him understand the atmosphere for people driving Route 66 in the 30s and 40s, so that he could kind of add that color to what he was writing. So it was great to talk to him about his book project, and also great to see this really beautiful car. This year marks the first time I've been back to ORU campus here in Tulsa, the Oral Roberts University, since returning from traveling internationally. After I got back home in 2010, I visited ORU for, maybe about 30 minutes, because I remember the architecture being kind of neat. Took some pictures and left, and I just hadn't been out there in, 7 years. And so this year I made a point to go out there again, and I was amazed at how differently I photographed the campus now than I did those years ago. And if you're a photographer, it's always worthwhile to go back to a place after you've been taking pictures for a couple of years, because your eye changes and the things that appeal to you change. And it's something that I would do better to remember more often, because just because I've been somewhere before and I've taken pictures there before doesn't mean if I go there again later that it's going to be a wasted time. And so this is, as an example, I had no pictures of this building at all the first time I went. I took pictures of the prayer tower and giant praying hands and some of the other things, but I had no pictures of this building. And so, this time I spent most of my time taking pictures of it, because just the lines and everything and the gold color appealed to me now, and they didn't appeal to me in 2010. So don't sell yourself short. If you've been somewhere before, you can always find something different. This was another really great opportunity. This year, BMX announced that they are going to relocate their world headquarters to Tulsa, and this is the site that they want to move into, which is the old Tulsa Ironworks facility, just northeast of downtown on the edge of the Greenwood district. It's been abandoned for some time. As you can see, it was just very heavy industrial. BMX is going to come in, renovate it as their offices, and just do a whole lot of work. What I did is, through my work on the Tulsa Route 66 Commission, I'd known some people in the city council, reached out and said, hey, I'd really love to get some pictures of this place before work starts on it. And a few days after that conversation, I found myself wandering along with a member of City Hall and a security guard, taking pictures of this great old industrial site. Eager to see what BMX does with it, but I was also very happy to have the opportunity to wander this building beforehand and capture it before any work is done. This is the Jersey Shore. In August, I joined Samantha and her family in New Jersey. They have an annual tradition of going to the shore and spending a week renting a house and just having a great time. And so this was the first year I was able to join them on the trip. And so we fly out there, Samantha, myself, my mom, my brother, and join the rest of Samantha's family. And that first morning I woke up really early, walked to the beach, which was about a block away, and caught this gorgeous sunrise over the ocean. It was an excellent start to the trip. What the picture doesn't communicate is, on the other side of the lens, I'm freaking out because I had woken up that morning, was walking to the beach, checked my phone, and noticed there had been a tornado in Tulsa right on top of our house, and I didn't know the condition of our house at the time. Thankfully, we just had some minor limb damage. The house was fine, but the shopping center, which is just literally feet away from my house, had some severe damage, and some of those stores aren't even reopened yet. So I really lucked out on that. But as far as peaceful and beautiful as this image is, my brain was in a completely different place when I was taking these pictures. But it worked out all right. The Woody Guthrie Center is a museum here in town that I am appreciating more and more every year. This was another stormy Oklahoma day where I went out to find some interesting places to take pictures of. The Woody Guthrie Center is a tribute to Woody Guthrie, an Oklahoma folk musician. He's most well known for writing "This Land Is Your Land," which you can see right there on the mural. But he's quite a figure in the music scene as well as the social activism scene. And so it's a place I tell people to stop and visit if they're coming in on Route 66, even though it isn't on the route itself. It's really important to American culture and to counterculture in the United States, and well worth the tour. They have his original lyrics on display and just some great stuff, and it's in a really vibrant area of downtown. So if you're ever in Tulsa, I highly recommend stopping to take a visit. This is the day trip I took in Kansas, and this is a unique bridge. I've never run into a bridge quite like this. It's a cantilevered bridge, which you normally see on much larger bridges, like in New York City and other places. You can see the way that the metal curves on the top here is just a little bit different than what you would normally see on a back road in, small town Kansas or Oklahoma. So as soon as I learned about this bridge, I planned a trip to go see it. And so, it just ends in a gravel road that goes out to farmland, but it's just a unique bridge that, I've included it here because I return to it often, and I want to get back up there and take more pictures of it. I know one day I'm going to wake up and it'll have been replaced with some really basic concrete slab, and this workmanship will be gone forever. And, I just don't know how many other bridges are out there that are designed like this. On that same trip, I came back down through Wichita, which is another town that I visited ages ago and have only just returned this year with a completely fresh perspective. This is near the Wichita North High School. The building in the background, that's what that is. But this is the Mesa Bridge right next to it. And the ornamentation on this is just outstanding. It is made out of cartholite, which is a unique decorative material which is made by mixing concrete and colored glass. It's all over the place in Wichita because it's from Wichita, and you just don't see it very often outside of the city. But as you can see, it's really ornate. You get a bunch of just really beautiful, vibrant colors. Of course, it's all red here, but down other parts of the bridge, you have some additional colors in there. And this was actually redone. They demolished the original bridge, built a new bridge, and then put the ornamentation on to the new bridge after saving it from the old. So even though the ornamentation is old, the bridge itself is new, which means it'll last a long time. So really happy to see the city of Wichita save this ornamentation because it is unique and something that I've never seen anywhere else. Dragon Con is always a great time. And it's a challenge for me to take the pictures from that event and whittle it down to a couple. This year I've included 3 of some of my favorite costumes and pictures. This is actually 2 friends of mine, Amy on the left and Christina on the right, doing a gender-bent version of Disney's Hercules. I'm always really excited to spend time with them. Usually it's at Dragon Con. Occasionally I'll be in Chicago and get to see them. But they're just really great people, really big hearts on these 2, and they're so creative. It's so one of the things I look forward to the most, and along with seeing the rest of my Dragon Con friends in Atlanta every year, is seeing what they've come up with, what kind of designs do they have, and just what they've been up to. So it was really great to get to catch up with them this year and see this. Is great. And I also happened to catch them as someone else was taking pictures of them professionally, so they were in a little section of the hotel that had a very crisp background, which is unusual. Normally at the con I'm just out taking pictures on the floor, like the next one I'm going to flip to. This is a lady that did a gender-bent version of Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. She's got the contacts in and a light under the hood to give her the green glow, and the spiders on the dress, and it's obviously handmade. And this is the thing I come to Dragon Con for, is just to see what kind of ideas people have had and what kind of creations they've put all this time and energy into. And it's just great. They've even got the little worm here and the bit on the arm, and just attention to detail is wonderful. In addition to the costumes that are just super creative and obviously have a lot of work going into it, I like the ones that are simple but executed well, like this next one, which is based on I Love Lucy. And so this lady, just knocked it out of the park. She's got a little conveyor belt that she's taking around with her with the chocolates on it, and she's got the pose down when I asked if I could take a picture, and the look is just perfect. And so this was probably my favorite. I say probably because there are so many, and I can't just say something was my favorite, period. But it's great. I love going every year and meeting my friends and just seeing what kind of new ideas are out there. This is the Marland Mansion in Ponca City. This was a nice day trip I took with Samantha. And we took a tour of the mansion, and I learned all about E.W. Marland, his family, and his kind of rags to riches and back to rags again story of the Marland Oil Company and this beautiful mansion that he built there in Ponca City. It's just amazing to me what things I will learn when I feel like I know an area, and then I'll stumble across something, or like Marland and the Marland Mansion I knew of, but I didn't realize quite how deep the history went up in the Ponca City area. So getting to learn about his contributions to the city, his relationship with his wife, troubles, the fact that she disappeared for decades after he died. It was just a really complicated history that all tied into the history of the city and this amazing palatial house. It was just great to go up there with Samantha, get to experience that, learn a bit together, and see a bit more of what makes Oklahoma unique. This was another really great opportunity. There's an antique military convoy that took Route 66 this year from Chicago all the way to LA. Took a little over a month, but I'd been aware of it for a little over a year, had the date on my calendar, took a vacation day, and followed them from Claremore all the way down to Sapulpa, and got pictures of them as they took Route 66. This is them coming into the eastern side of Tulsa. They had jeeps and trucks and there was a guy on a motorcycle, people from all over the U.S., New Zealand, Australia, some from Europe. It was just a really great group of people that are just really passionate about their antique vehicles. And most of them were in honor of a family member that was in the services, or they had people with them that were veterans. So it was just a really great opportunity to get to talk to people from a lot of different walks of life and take some pictures on Route 66 that you just don't get the opportunity to take pictures of very often. This is also right around the time that my first article with Tulsa People was published. A nice kind of bit on Route 66 in Oklahoma from Quapaw up in the northeast corner all the way out to Texola on the Texas border. And I've been publishing monthly articles in their magazine of different day trips from Tulsa ever since, which is another opportunity that just kind of fell in my lap, and I'm very thankful for, and something that I'm very proud of. And this was kind of the start of it all. This is a picture I've been chasing for a while. I love the old Cyrus Avery Bridge. You can see here in the foreground. It's the old Deco-style bridge. The thing is, it's kind of difficult to take pictures of it with Tulsa in the background, because once you're down on the bridge level, you have a lot interfering with the skyline. Even here, a lot of the iconic buildings of Tulsa's downtown are completely hidden. You can't see the Phil Tower. The Mid-Continent is not very visible. You can just see the edge of the 320 Boston building, and so some people may look at this without the bridge and wonder what city it is. But having this with the Route 66 pedestrian crossing, Cyrus Avery Plaza, the bridge, is great. This is the kind of Tulsa Route 66 iconic image I've been wanting to capture for a long time. And it turns out I had to pull off to the side of the interstate to get it, but whatever works. For our anniversary this year, Samantha and I went to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And it's another place that I had not been to in many years and went to with a fresh perspective. And so I wandered around and took pictures while we kind of explored the city and the surrounding area. I have to say I had bigger expectations of Eureka Springs in my mind. I was like, man, it's this really great historic place and all these cool buildings and all this great stuff, and I'm just going to be taking so many pictures I'm not going to know what to do with myself. But, I mean, it's pretty touristy. It's more commercial than I remembered, since I've been spending a lot of time in small towns that don't have the commercial pull that Eureka Springs does. A lot of that stuff really is much more obvious to me now, I suppose. But not to say I didn't enjoy it. We had a great time there together. And this is the picture that I walked away from that I felt really communicated the town, since it's on the streets run at multiple levels because it's on the side of a pretty steep incline. and we did have a good time. I just didn't get as many good pictures as I thought I would. Livy Lee's. This is a great old neon sign that this year was repainted and partially restored. They still don't have the neon on it, but they replaced all the chaser bulbs and repainted the sign to a little bit of controversy. So for most of the time, all the time I've known it, it's been a red and yellow sign for Daylight Donuts. Unfortunately, it was not restored very well by the previous people that owned this little donut shop on Yale. And so the lettering was off, the paint was chipping, it was just not done well, and it was kind of falling apart. Livy Lee's, who started running Daylight Donuts not too long ago, restored the building and then restored the sign and gave it this really nice 50s color scheme. Some people are upset saying that, oh, we like the old colors, what have you, but those weren't original either. Back in the day, this was a drive-in where people could come in and get burgers, and the sign was like a blue color. So, that red and yellow wasn't original to the sign. This isn't either, but I think this looks great, and it shows the kind of care and attention that you want to see when people move into a business and say, that's a really great sign, I want to restore it, and I want it to, be an icon again for people, and I think they've done a great job. Now this picture is kind of a cheat, because it's not some building or some grand vista or anything like that. This is a picture related to a project that I'm working on. This is an original menu for Villa Venice, which was a restaurant in Tulsa that closed in the 1970s. This year I've been really working at putting together a book that captures pictures and history of Lost Tulsa restaurants that people remember fondly. This is one of them. This was an Italian restaurant that operated for many years off of Lewis Avenue here in town, and by Tommy Alessio. I got to meet a member of his family, talk about the history, learn about what made Villa Venice special and popular. And sometime in 2018, I plan to have a book published with pictures and history of not just the villa, but all kinds of restaurants in Tulsa that are gone, to kind of share that love I have for yesterday with people, and hopefully get people remembering some of the times they spent in places like Pennington's Drive-In, or the Villa, or any number of the restaurants that are gone that people tend to talk about when I tell them that I'm working on this project. Stay tuned. Shamrock, Texas. I have quite a few pictures of the U-Drop Inn. This is a big Route 66 icon, but I had none at night. And so I stayed overnight in Shamrock this year and finally got a chance to take some pictures of the building lit up with their beautiful neon right at sunset. And so I was just staying across the street, set up my tripod, and just waited. And so another picture this year that I've been wanting for a long time and finally got the opportunity to take. Beautiful building. Even if you're not stopping, you're not doing anything on Route 66, if you're going down I-40 through Shamrock, Texas, this is like a mile from the highway. Take the exit, go take a look at the gas station. It's beautiful. One of the most stunning pieces of roadway architecture that I've ever seen. The reason I was in Shamrock is I had planned kind of a last-minute road trip out to Española, New Mexico to see this neon sign. The rumor was going around that this sign's demise was imminent, and I wanted to get a picture of it before it was completely destroyed. So I left on a Friday, took this picture on Saturday, drove home on Sunday. This motel had been closed, it had caught fire, some of the building had collapsed. As you can see, the sign's not in the best shape, and so when the days are numbered on something like this, I have to go see it, or, if I put it off, it's going to be gone, and then I'll have never had the opportunity to take pictures of it and see the area. Very glad I did. This gave me the opportunity to see a lot of the West that I'd missed out on in New Mexico. And this sign met my expectations. It was a long drive, but it was very worth it. On that same trip, I had the opportunity to see Los Luceros, which is I guess you could call it a homestead in New Mexico that has quite a long and rich history. It's not a place that a lot of people are really aware of or know much about, but the New Mexico, it's very important to New Mexico heritage. And it's actually a place that I learned about from Michael Wallace. He has his next book is going to be about Los Luceros and the history of the area right on the banks of the Rio Grande. And when I was out there, I thought, oh, why not? I'll see if I can stop by and see this place that Michael told me about. And luckily for me, I was able to walk around a little bit and get some pictures just as the leaves were falling off the trees. So you got a little bit of yellow left on the branches. It was just really nice to walk around in this area with some buildings that date back, centuries. It was a really neat place to visit, and I'm looking forward to reading his book so I learn a little bit more about the history of this place going back to the days of the conquistadors. On that same trip, I drove to see a bridge down in the Rio Grande Gorge. Beautiful drive, and then I had to drive up the side of the gorge on a very steep switchback road to get out of it in the Mustang. I'd had my doubts. I'd turned over 166,000 miles on this car this year. I've had to have some work done to it recently, and so I left Tulsa in it just kind of with a prayer. Hey, it's taking good care of me. Hopefully that continues, and it did. As soon as I got to the top of that steep switchback road, I pulled over, took some deep breaths, and these beautiful pictures of the car with the mountains in the background. It was a really great trip, and the Mustang did superb. Very, very happy with this car. Of course, as those of you who know the history, I think of Dad anytime I'm in it, and so I was able to take him along with me on this trip, and that's always something that's very special to me. This is in the panhandle of Oklahoma, little abandoned homestead, which since I've taken this picture, I've done some searching and found a lot of people that take pictures out in the panhandle like this little house. It's just off the main highway that goes through the area, and as you can see, there's just nothing out there. The panhandle is so flat, and I'm always looking for ways to kind of communicate that and get a feel for what life might have been like for people when this house was built, what the homestead situation was like during the Dust Bowl. And I have no idea how long this house has been abandoned, but you can see there's just nothing going on anywhere, and I could have turned around 180 degrees and looked the other direction, and it would be just as flat, just as empty. And I try to imagine what life was like for people out here with their family, and that's it, and they may not see somebody else for months. And it's a piece of Oklahoma history, and someday this house is going to fall down, and then it's just going to be a pile of wood and what have you. But for now, it kind of helps me put myself back into what days may have been like on the frontier. Now this is interesting. This is a little abandoned store in Arkansas, the little community of Mayfield, which is not far from Fayetteville. I pulled over because I saw the sign. I actually turned around for this. I passed the store. Samantha was with me, and was sitting in the driver's seat thinking, that was kind of a neat building. I don't know if I want to turn around. And God bless her, she convinced me to turn around and go get some pictures of it, so I did. And I took some pictures and was pretty happy with them, but it wasn't until later that I realized that this reminded me of the little model buildings we had when I was real little with our little model railroad. We had several of these little, kind of a little grocery store and some other little buildings that went with it, and it looked almost exactly like this. If I close my eyes, I could see it, and I can remember what it felt like when I would pick up the little building with my tiny hand. And so this appeals to me in multiple ways. But from a technical standpoint, it's near the end of the day. You have the sunlight going across it, and it, warms up the picture a little bit. But this appeals to me for many reasons. All right, and this is another piece of luck I had. I was talking to somebody about the book I'm working on with Lost Restaurants, and they said, well, the city of Tulsa has the sign to the old Denver Grill. It's a restaurant that was demolished in 2005 to make way for the BOK Center. And I had no idea that anything had survived the restaurant, let alone the entire sign that they had, used to sit on Denver to advertise the restaurant. It is actually sitting in a field on city property on top of the original scaffolding that the Meadowgold sign was on before they restored it. And so as you can see, this sign is rusted, and it's not in great shape. It's better than it having been completely destroyed. But because of knowing some people in the city with my work on the Route 66 Commission, I became aware of this sign's existence and then was given the opportunity to go out and take some pictures that I may be able to include in my upcoming book. So, just a really great opportunity and something I was really happy to be able to capture. So as you can see, it's been just a big year for me. A lot of travel, a lot of miles, a lot of time spent on the road. But having a regular published article in Tulsa People's big. I had my first commercial installation of my photography this year. I took some architectural photos for a company this year for the first time. In addition to continuing to write my blogs, getting to go on that road trip with Michael in the middle of the year, working officially with the Oklahoma Route 66 Association and the Tulsa Route 66 Commission. It's been a really great year, and I'm excited to see what 2018 holds. No doubt I will get to the end of the year and think I haven't done anything, but when I turn around and look, I'll see it was actually a pretty big year. So thank you to you who have stuck around with me throughout this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the road.